Templates would be really, really boring if all you could do was pass along variables. So let's take a look at how to work with conditionals and loops in EJS. So embeddable JavaScript, or EJS, lets you use regular JavaScript statements in your templates. And that means that you can do things like add if, then, and else statements. And those allow you to create content that show up only when certain conditions are met. In addition to that, you can use loops like for and for each to iterate through different values within the template. So let's take a look at our project right now. And you probably can't tell, but there's actually a problem with this page. If I right click and do inspect right here, I'm using Google Chrome. And if I go to the console tab, you'll notice that there is an error. So this script is designed to show images full screen on the page when you click on thumbnails. The problem is we don't have any images on the page. And this script expects there to be an element with a class of PixGrid on the page that has thumbnails in it. And because I haven't added that, it's causing an error on the page. So all we need to do is create an if statement in our template. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom. You can see that here's where I'm loading that script. And what I want to do is only load that script if some conditions are met. So to do that, I'm going to use a less than sign %. And then I can use just a regular JavaScript if statement. So I'm going to do if type of artwork not equal, and then undefined. That means that if this variable that I'm going to create later called artwork doesn't exist, then I want to do something. And what I want to do is actually load this file right here. Let's copy and paste that in there. And in order for the script to work properly, I need to go ahead and wrap the 2 lines in the templating strings. So to close this line out, I'll use %greater than sign, and then do the same thing down here. So now it's a normal if statement. And if these conditions are met, if there is a variable in the route called artwork, then it will display my JavaScript. Otherwise, this is not going to load. So let's go ahead and save this. And when you do this, you may get some errors right here. This is because of the reload script. Sometimes when you save it, has to catch up a little bit. So I'm going to clear this out and show you that if I refresh the page, I'm not going to get any errors because that variable doesn't exist on this page. And the thing is, some pages in this website are not going to have images in them. So this is a great thing to add. But what if I actually did want to show the photos down here? Well, first, I need to create an array with just the photos that I need. The problem is that if we look at the data file, the photos are part of each speaker's info. So this speaker's array here is an array of objects with some information about each artist. And one of the items in here is called artwork, and that is another array of the artwork from each one of the different artists. And so we have to grab this array from each of the artists. And so we need to merge everything together so that we can have one variable that is just a list of the different art. So we need to do that, and I'm going to do that back in my route. So I need to be looking at the index route right here. Remember that the data is stored in a variable called data file. So if I also open up my app.js document, and I want to actually open up the routes and the app.js, if I take a look at this, I'll notice that I set a variable called app data here, and I passed along all the information from the data file. I'm feeding that by requiring the JSON object right here. So I want to use that in my index.js route. If you remember, the way we did that is by in this get method, we're going to create a variable called data, and this is going to use the request parameter, and we're going to use the app.get method to get this variable called app data. And now this route is going to have access to the data. So I'm also going to create an internal variable, and I'll call this page photos. This variable, for right now, is going to be an empty array. But this is where we want to grab all the information from the artists and get all the photos and then put them in their own array. So I need to go through each of the speakers and get their photos, combine them all together. So I'm going to use data.speakers to navigate through all the speakers, and then use the for each function to iterate through each of the items. So this is an internal variable that I'm creating, right? And then in here, I will use that page photos array that I created, and I'm going to combine using the concat method. This is just a regular JavaScript method, all of the artwork from each of the artists. So this is just going to put all the artwork from the artists into this page photos array. And that means that we can now send the variable called artwork and pass along page photos. So now I'll be able to add the images into our template. I don't want to bore you with typing a bunch of HTML, so I created a starter gist at this URL. So I have a bunch of HTML that I've made right here. Notice that there's a div with a class of PixGrid, and this is what my JavaScript file is expecting, and then a bunch of art in here. So I'm going to click on this raw button just to get the code, select everything, and then copy it, and come back into my file, look for the index template, and scroll up. I've got the sidebar right here. There's an article class sidebar, so I'm going to add another one here and just paste that code. This is the other sidebar. We can get rid of one of these spaces here. So all the code that I need to do to iterate through this artwork variable that I created needs to go right here. So I'm going to use another if statement. Let's go ahead and type in the template right here. So we'll just sort of type the template strings. Sometimes it's easy to just do this and just kind of keep a copy of it in your clipboard because you're going to be using them a lot. So if the artwork length is greater than 0, that means if this page has some artwork in it, then I want you to do something. And what I'm going to do, and it actually might be easier to sort of just worry about writing all the JavaScript first, and then we'll come back and put in all the template strings. So we'll create just a temporary loop here, I equals 0, and I is less than artwork length. Then we will increment this temporary variable. And then in here, we will just put an image tag. All of the artwork is in the artwork folder that is in images. Then I'm going to use a percentage template string here. And let's see, that needs an equal sign because I'm just going to output a variable. And then I'll do artwork and then use that index to get at the information from each piece of artwork. And I can also add an alt tag that will just have sort of an index number for each one of those pieces of art. All right, I'm going to get rid of the text wrap. So to do that in this particular editor, I'm going to go to View, Toggle Soft Wrap, because it's a little bit easier to do the template strings if everything's not wrapping. So I can copy this one. I know this is a part of the template. This is as well, and then this. And I'm going to copy this one and put these at the end of my lines. So you can see it's a little bit easier to not be wrapping while you're doing, not that you can't play a good rap song, but it's kind of easier if you don't turn on text wrap. And really this spacing's not going to be so critical. So that looks pretty good to me. I need to make sure that I save the index.ejs as well as index.js. Let's go ahead and save this one. And then once I save everything, then my page should have this section right here with the artwork. If you see an error sometimes, what happens is that the reload script that I have automating everything sometimes detects an error when you have saved, say, one of these files and not the other one. Sometimes it doesn't know that you actually have declared a variable here once you save the template. So if that is happening to you, just come over here to the page, Just do a manual reload and everything should work fine. By the way, if you're interested in how I created this script, take a look at my other course, JavaScript Enhancing the DOM. I create the script in Chapter 5. Conditionals and loops can help you create powerful code that takes full advantage of JavaScript features within your templates. When you combine the data on your routes and learn to control the information flow through your application, you'll be able to build pages that use the full power of Express and JavaScript.